It's wonderful to be together. There's something about being with people that love Jesus. And I don't care if you come off the street. I don't care if you smell. I don't care what you look like. I don't care. I just want to hear your story. And I love the stories that people tell. And if you've not got time for someone's story, then why should anyone have time for yours? Sorry, my notes are the wrong way up. If you've not got time for someone else's story, why should anyone else ever have time for you? And it's time that we listened more to one another's stories, because those stories are so precious. Those stories are so sweet. Our sister gave her testimony this morning, and she gave a testimony a while ago when she came. You don't know what she's walking through with her children. Many of you walk through ordinary things with your children. Go and ask our sister what she walks through. Incredible woman. And you see these things and you look around and you think, whoa, could I walk if that was me? Could I walk through if that was me? And just for a few moments, I've got to try and do what you did. You did it too well. 10 minutes. You should have gone on. It would have given me a bit of space. You did well, Jacob. Just quickly, as we bring the convention to a conclusion, Kingsley's coming after me, but I just want you to turn to Ruth chapter 3, and a verse there that spoke to me has spoken so wonderfully into my heart. It's very important that we understand that the Lord is there regardless of anything. Now we know that, we hear it, and the problem is that we become very familiar with it. But just to get through this quickly, we know the story, and I'm sure you all know the story of Naomi. And Naomi lost a husband and 2 sons. Now, no one could go through greater depths than that. I don't care what your depths are, those depths are horrendous. And she could not even fathom that there was going to be an overflow. She could not fathom that one day that, out of everything that had happened was going to come the line of our Redeemer. And in many of our circumstances, when we're going through the depths that we go through, in so many ways, in all of the aspects of life that there are that you could go through, and the different ways and avenues that it comes about, you find that there are depths in our lives that we get to, that we say, there could never be another blessing that would ever bring me back up again. There could never be something that would be big enough or good enough that would carry me back up to where I used to be before this happened. And so Naomi was going through quite, I would say, a very serious time in her life, and her sons and her husband had died, and she was now looking back towards where she previously knew the blessing, where she previously received of the good things of God. Her husband, if you look at it very seriously, it looks as though her husband had made the decision to take them down into Egypt, and we understand why. They were looking for food, so we would all do the same sorts of things. But in going down there, her sons had married Moabite girls, and it was forbidden. But out of that which is forbidden, look at what God does. And you can say, well, in your life, and I can say in mine, well, there's much things that are forbidden, sister. There's much things that could be forbidden. But somehow God will turn it around and he'll bring an overflow. And I don't know how he does it. I just know he does. I don't like his ways sometimes, and I tell him so. I do not believe you should be a Christian who is not talking to the Lord as you would, in your own mind. Yeah, I don't like this, but whatever. And then, oh Lord, it's just lovely, how wonderful. You're a hypocrite. Go to the Lord and weep and cry before him and tell him, I don't get this. What are you doing? And do you actually think Naomi would have ever said to herself, oh, well, I think I'll come out of this? No, I don't believe she did. I don't believe she ever thought, from the point of the death of the second son, it looks as though there was 10 years between the death of her husband and her 2 sons. I think that was the end. And we can get so many times that we're looking for the blessing, we're looking for the blessing, we're looking for the blessing, but there's only one route to blessing. Yeah, and it's always brokenness. Always. In some way, you will be broken if you are going to come into blessing. You will be. Now, if there's any young person in here, I'm sorry, but you will be. Because the thing is, to get to the overflow, we find that as Naomi went back, we know the story, all of us know it well, but as she went back, we know that when she got back there, they said, oh, Naomi's coming. She said, don't call me Naomi. Don't you dare call me Naomi. You call me bitter. Because she was a bitter woman. There's nothing worse than a bitter woman. I've had to live with things in different areas in the background of my life with bitterness that can make you feel sick because people will not give up their bitterness. Bitterness will kill you. Bitterness will do all sorts of things to you. But there was nothing she could do until God stepped in. And there's nothing you can do while God's dealing with you other than wait. And I don't like that. I hate that. And every single one, if I was to go around and ask you your stories, you'd say, the waiting time is the worst. Go out and wait for a bus, and then find it doesn't turn up. You get angry, especially if it's raining. You don't like waiting for the natural, let alone waiting for God. But what she did was she took back a daughter-in-law who was the most incredible Moabite woman you could ever really read about. She said, wherever you go, I'm going to go. Whatever you do, I'm going to do. Whatever you want, I'm going to do. And when you look at the story, it's a very sweet love story. And I love love stories because I fell in love with my husband at a young age. And he was standing against the wall. And somebody said to him, will you go out with so-and-so? And I went, oh, I fell in love with him as soon as I saw him. And I went home and I cried. And I went, oh. Now you would say, well, why would you want him? He didn't speak to anybody, one this and the other, but I just fell in love with this man. Well, I was only 14. And I wasn't allowed in until I was 20 odd, so don't worry, my father makes sure of that. But anyway, there are all sorts of things in between. But this love story is such an incredible story that Ruth was such an incredible woman that she would do exactly as Naomi said. And Naomi was the one who set it all up. Because if you look at the story, go home and look at the story, you'll find that she would have known deep within her heart that that land, she owned that land. She knew deep within her heart, she owned that land. And there was a kinsman on that land. And so she thought, right, I'm going to and she tried to make her own things come to pass. So she goes to Ruth. She says, you go in and you wash and you put on perfume. And you get down to that threshing floor. When you get down to that threshing floor, do as I say. Now, that's a good mother-in-law. A very good mother-in-law, she's godly. And a very good woman if she does what her mother-in-law says, which is good. But if you go down to the threshing floor, every threshing floor that you go into has a good beating. And every single one of you will have a good beating. Sorry. You'll see why in a minute. Some of you have been beaten, you think, oh my Lord, I couldn't go through much more. I couldn't get through much more than this. And at times you're on the floor and you're before God and you're going, how much more of this do I take? And the Lord says, a bit more. And then he goes on a bit more and he goes, yeah, and a bit more. And you go, oh Lord, how much more? But all the time he's dealing with you. And all the time the Lord was dealing, not only with Ruth, but he was dealing with Naomi. And it could only come about by the processes that it would, I can't go into all the processes, but the threshing floor is where all the wheat is beaten out and then it's thrown up in the air. And, you know, if you just go into a threshing floor, you'd feel quite, you know, oh, where is everything? Disorientated and all sorts of things in your life can become very disorientated. But there's a verse that's very important in the story of this. And it's in verse 9 and 10. And this is when Ruth was, you know, Boaz believed in the blessing. He said, leave hands full on purpose for people. He believed in blessing people. Ruth believed in blessing people. She'd gone home with her mother-in-law. She'd gone home and given up everything else. So they believed in the blessing, all of those in this story. Naomi had seen the blessing before and obviously was going back to hope she could find blessing. Because even if you're getting bitter, you're hoping something's going to turn up. You're hoping something's going to change. You're hope against hope. You think, oh, this is hope against hope. But watch this. It says, and he said, who art thou? This is Boaz. And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid. For thou art a near kinsman. If I leave you with nothing else, I leave you with this. As she said to him, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. When you get to that position in God, he then says the rest. I'm not my own person, so throw your skirts over me and hide me. Throw your skirt over me, Lord. Cover me from who I really am. Cover me from what everyone sees me as. Cover me from what men want to say about me. Just cover me. Cover me. Because I'm yours. And Ruth had got to this, and she said, I'm thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. And he said, and this is your Redeemer. Boaz speaks of our Redeemer. And as you come through those hard places, you will come through to blessing. But I'm taking you on the journey that you all know that you go through, that you've been through, that you'll go through over and over again until he comes. But here it is. And he said, blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast shown more kindness in the latter end than in the beginning. What was that really saying? He was saying that through all the bitterness, all the things of losing your own husband, all the things of standing by, you have become more of a woman. That's what it's saying there. You have shown more kindness through it all. And when you are giving more kindness than you would have when the bad journey started, when you have become more in God, when you have become more grown in him, it says you have shown more kindness in the latter than at the beginning, insomuch as thou followest. And now, my daughter, and now, my sons, as we leave the conference, the convention, and Kingsley takes over, and now, my people, says daughter there, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest. Not want, not anchor after, because you've laid it down under his skirts. You've laid your own things down under his skirts. If it doesn't come to pass, if it doesn't work out, if it's not what I expected, if it's not the way I thought, Lord, hide me. Hide me. That why? That as it says there, that thou, he says, I will do for thee all that thou requirest. How much more would we see if we would just lay down and say, hide me. Hide me. What a God we serve, that in the hiding comes more than in the showing. Can you understand God? It's always upside down. In the things where you're not seen, in the things where you think you're forgotten, in the things where you think, oh, there's nothing going to happen, God turns up. And he says, I will do more all for thee that thou requirest. Take from this convention the love of one another, the love of God that passes all understanding, and know that when you're going through the hard times, when you get back, and the good times, but the hard times, say, okay, Lord, just hide me, just cover me, help me to lie under your wings, and in you do I put my trust. Why? Because he says, I will do all that you need. I will bring about all that you require, because I'm my Redeemer. The Lord bless you.